For a while, leftists pushed things in a way that was gradual enough to keep conservatives relatively pacified. They would push their agenda at a slow enough pace that gave people enough time to become accustomed to each minor violation of nature by the time they pushed the next development. But basically, since the election of Donald Trump, the rate of leftist progress has greatly accelerated to the point that even people that lean left have become uncomfortable with how quickly things are moving. The first of Robert Conquest's laws of politics is, everyone is conservative about what he knows best. And so it is only natural that you will have people like James Lindsay, who is mistakenly identified as conservative for being aggressively anti-woke, whose issue with the LGBTQ movement is only that the TQs are ruining everything for the LGBs. And you also have gays against groomers, who are actually quite fine with all the degeneracy that leftists were pushing until 2016. It's only the newer forms of degeneracy that they have a distaste for. The position of these moderate anti-woke grifters is simply, you can destroy Western society all you want, but please go back to your slower, less perceptible pace. When things move too fast, even leftists will find themselves conservative about certain things. But we should not allow their conservative impulse about what is familiar to deceive us about what they are at their core. They are driving us toward the same cliff, they just insist on going the speed limit. We ultimately need to recognize that drag queen story hours, the mutilation of children, affirmative action, and the destruction of every form of entertainment we once enjoyed are just the tip of the iceberg, just the most evident fruit of less obvious roots that run deep in history. This is why I've been doing a series on the genealogy of wokeness. We need to stop seeing things in terms of isolated issues and start seeing things in wholes. We need to address the core of the problem and not just get riled up over individual instances of blatantly obvious insanity. People only get away with these things because conservatives have already granted them so much ground. It has become quite popular and profitable to point to the most obviously crazy elements of wokeness, but most of this sort of content is impotent and actually somewhat counterproductive. To some degree, it is helpful for many people to realize there are others out there who also have common sense. When your school, job, and government are all constantly telling you blatant lies, it is nice to see other people giving voice to your common sense outrage, and it is comforting knowing you're not the only one thinking these things. But beyond this sort of outrage content can start to actually work against making any positive change. One of the primary reasons that woke outrage content is counterproductive is because it expends energy without changing anything. We ought to feel a sense of righteous indignation when we see craziness going on in our nation. But if we expend all of this zealous energy just venting about how stupid leftists are, while the leftists continue to actually do things, we are wasting our anger on futile activities. How many more videos do you need to watch pointing out how the new female protagonist is ugly? How many more I hate woke video games videos do you need to hear to affirm that you're not crazy? At this point, we all agree. It's all been said. But what now? We can't simply go on complaining. We must actually do something. But the problem is that in order to do something, we need to have a goal to work toward, and that is precisely the problem. What is the goal of anti-woke grifters? Honestly, I'd say the majority are simply trying to make a living off of a more anti-fragile market. If you cater to leftists with your content, you are just one slip of the tongue away from losing everything. But if you cater to people angry about wokeness, you have an endless supply of insanity to comment on, and no one's going to care if someone digs up an old private message where you say the N-word. It's simply a good strategy for being cancel-proof. But the problem with this is that these people are not motivated to actually provide a solution. In fact, if they actually managed to persuade all the woke bugmen in the world to stop being so woke, they'd run out of content. They actually thrive on the prominence of wokeness since complaining about it is how they make their money. This is why they are focused on complaining about wokeness and not providing any solutions. As long as all the young, angsty right-wingers are screaming into the void as they watch video after video breaking down the blatant propaganda in the latest AAA video game, all the while doing nothing to stop the woke mob, they will continue to make big bucks off of outrage. If Western society is actually to be saved, we need to stop being a disorganized group of curmudgeons just sitting around and complaining. We need to stop simply being against things. We need a positive vision, and we need organized action toward that end. And that positive vision cannot simply be to go back to the 90s when society was simply being destroyed at a slower pace, but at least we had fun video games. It was that period of time which led to the time we're living in now. We need a positive vision that is diametrically opposed to the developments of Western society, which have led us to this point of utter insanity. And this will require looking far back into history to discover what kept past societies from drifting into decadence. So I would encourage everyone who watches my channel to stop being content with merely watching anti-woke grifters complain about the newest race swap or whatever. Read some pre-modern books, discover the positive vision that made the West great in the past, and turn it into a positive vision for the future of your children and children's children. I will not go into detail here, but I will give you a sneak peek of what you will find in such books. Their positive vision was fundamentally hierarchical, not egalitarian. It was fundamentally religious, not secular. It was characterized by duty and virtue, not expressive individualism. It put a high value on family, place, and heritage, not on individual autonomy and globalism. In terms of particular books to direct you toward, I always have a difficult time identifying good introductory level books that fully express what I view as the necessary positive cultural vision. But I feel I should at least send people in the right direction, towards some books in that general vein, to begin building a positive vision for an alternative culture. There is, of course, the Bible. You should all be reading that. I'd also suggest, once again, After Virtue by Alistair MacIntyre, and afterward to move on to Aquinas' Summa Theologica, if you can handle it. Aquinas' De Regno, or On Kingship, Dante's De Monarchia, and Robert Filmer's Patriarcha are great political works I'd recommend, maybe along with the modern book Democracy, The God That Failed by Hans Hermann Hoppe, The Mosaic Polity by Franciscus Junius, and The Law of the Covenant by James B. Jordan are some great books on the Mosaic Law, which I believe should once again be a central influence on modern laws. And Empires of Dirt, Angels in the Architecture, and Mere Christendom by Douglas Wilson, and The Case for Christian Nationalism by Stephen Wolfe are some decent books which provide a framework for understanding the importance of divine law in relation to modern nations. Also, if you want to understand the importance and how-to of building a godly household, C.R. Wiley's 2 books on the household are full of indispensable wisdom. As evil has no existence except as the negation of good, so also leftism does not build but only destroys. Conservatism is useless unless we understand what precisely we are conserving. And when we've gotten to a point that there is little left to conserve, we must look back at the past for inspiration and start once again to build. So stop wasting energy complaining and start learning how to build. Anyway, those are my thoughts on that. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and all that.